to this tone.
Our issues, our voices, our views. This is Politics in Black. What's happening, family? We are back and we are live for another broadcast of Politics in Black, brought to you by the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants, aka NAASD. Friday.
Yes.
Oh, once again, if this is your first time here, my name is Chad Brown. I'm only one half of the team here. Sitting across from me, I just called her name, but she's the people's champion, Friday Jones. Friday, say what's up to her.
Hey, everybody. We have a powerhouse of a show today.
It's going down.
I think, one of the things that we really try to do is hear from people that do this work, but do the work in very specific way. And today is all about land, baby.
It's all about land today. We're gonna come, as reparationists, we talk a lot about land. We talk about the denied promise of 40-acre land grants. We talk about how Black Americans were locked out of the Homestead Act, the federal program that undergirded white Americans with land ownership. We talk about the GI Bill and the other federal programs that we were locked out of. But today we want to come and we want to talk about the land that we were able to acquire that was taken from us and how that happened. Because it happened on a scale that I don't think many people realize. So today we're going to come with some experts. We're gonna bring in first to the show a gentleman who worked tirelessly to protect Black farmers and other property owners. And so this show is gonna be really, like Friday said, focused on land and focused on how does land play into this reparations fight that we're all engaged in. So I'm ready, Friday. It's a great show once again. We're going to get into it. First, like the video, share the video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed so you can get notified. We sometimes be a little late, and that way you'll know when we're coming on. And if you want to donate to us, hit the Super Chat or hit the Cash App, $NAASDLA. So first, coming to Politics in Black, I want to bring in Mr. Joe Brooks. Joe Brooks is a senior fellow who's been with PolicyLink since its founding in 1999. And prior to working with PolicyLink, his notable experience that we're going to talk about here was he was the president of the Emergency Land Fund from 1972 to 1984. So the ELF was focused on saving Black-owned farmland in rural Black belt of the southeast United States. And he later served as an executive director of the Berkeley, California War on Poverty and executive director of the Rent Stabilization Board in Berkeley. Mr. Brooks holds a master's degree in city and regional planning from the University of California, Berkeley, and a bachelor's degree in business and economics from San Jose State University. Joe is a mentor to scores of young people, a commentator about politics, policy, and history, and just a fun tidbit, he likes to dance too, y'all. So he one of us, right? So please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Joe Brooks.
Hey, Mr. Brooks.
Hey, can you see me all right?
Oh,
we can see you. We hear you.
You're looking good too. You told me to call you Joe, so I'm gonna call you Joe now.
Please do. Some people call me Baba Joe.
All right.
Baba Joe.
All right, Baba Joe.
Joe it is.
Well, thank you for being. Go ahead, sir. I'm not going to interrupt. Go ahead.
Thank you for the gracious introduction. And in understanding the format and the purpose as to why you do what you do, this is my kind of party.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being again, sir. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it.
Because you have a lot of information to share with the audience, so I think we want to get right into it. So
okay, so I'll just start off by saying this. A landless people is a hopeless people.
Hey.
Amen.
And Mate Shung, Marcus Garvey, and Malcolm X let us know that. Land ownership is a foundation for wealth building,
yes,
economic security and sustainability, independence, and it is a cultural glue, especially a glue that worked for Black folks in the South after emancipation. So, quite frankly, from my point of view, white folks in the South and up South, and when I say up South, that's outside of the rural South, but white folks in the South and up South as well have been and still are, in my opinion, determined to stop or undermine any efforts of African Americans to be independent or out of reach of their control. And this is my point of view, quite frankly, and it is a driver with what they are up to as a center point of their manifesto, as I would put it, their white supremacy manifesto. So, some examples of this undermining of our efforts to own and control our lives through land ownership. And remember, too, at least in my experience in the South and in the civil rights movement, land ownership was also an advocacy point. It was also a base-specific participation because of the independence that Black farmers and other Black landowners in the South had. They were willing and ready to step up and to stand up to white folks in the undermining of our efforts and presence. Some examples of that, as you might already know, but I'll repeat it, having to do with land ownership. First of all, land ownership from white folks' point of view is a no-no because of all that it can represent and an out of control of African Americans. The Black Wall Street in Greenwood,
Tulsa,
Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. White folks burnt that place down because it was out of their control. 1,000 plus properties were destroyed and 300 African Americans' lives were taken. And then in 1923, in Rosewood, Florida, we had 300 properties and 50 deaths destroyed and African Americans dying. And then there is the Farmers Home Administration as a unit of the Department of Agriculture. With our the loan denials, or a dollar short and a day late, which was a setup for Black farmers to not survive and to fail. And then, of course, there's the urban renewal, which I often link to urban renewal being Negro removal.
That's right.
The highways and the freeway development in our communities was an excuse for eminent domain and, quite frankly, a basis for the theft of Black-owned land. So that's sort of like a context to try to appreciate what has happened to us. But over time, I want to give you some data points and also some sense of the buildup of Black-owned landownership and the decline of Black-owned landownership. First of all, there was no 40 acres and a mule. General Sherman in 1865, meeting with African-American ministers, mainly in South Carolina, put the question to them, what would they like to have as freed slaves? And they said land. It made all the sense in the world to them to be able to sustain their own livelihood through ownership of land. Of course,
I think W.E.B. Du Bois called it land hunger.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
That didn't work because Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and Vice President Johnson took his place, immediately set the idea of 40 acres and a mule aside, and there we were starting from scratch. The real effort to build Black land ownership, and remember, this was after a Freedmen's Bureau that did little or nothing to accumulate African-American land opportunities in the South. But after the Freedmen's Bureau was ended in the late 1870s, in 1886 through 1910, I would think that was the biggest effort on the part of African Americans to accumulate land. Over 1.2 million Black landowners built land holdings over that period of time. And the peak of land ownership was in 1910 with over 20 million acres of land accumulated against tremendous odds.
Now, Joe, let me pause you for a second, because that's outstanding to me. Because when you're talking about 1910, you're talking about some of the height of racial violence in this country. So you're only 9 years away from Red Summer in 1919, right? Because I read the same statistic here. So what you're saying is the height of Black American land ownership came at a time when we were facing day-to-day, daily terrorism and under threat of death, imminent death around each corner.
Exactly. So pat us on the back. Imagine our courage and the challenge and the odds that were against us, that we still were able to accumulate 20 million acres of land. And by the way, when I laid this number out of 20 million acres, that's acreage accounted for through the Census of Agriculture, which only counts land that at least produces $500 in activity a year.
Okay.
So there's a lot of Black-owned land that is idle, that has not, and was accumulated and acquired, but was not producing any return necessarily. And a lot of that land is held in heirs property, where Black families have, the owners have died without a will and therefore have scattered heirship. And it is that land that is also under siege and sought after by developers. And by the way, we did a study in 1979 through 81, heirs property study, and we calculated that there probably was an additional 5 to 8 million acres of land over and above what the census was counting, owned by Black Americans. And we were able to identify some of these up South Blacks in Philadelphia and in Chicago. And in fact, they became members of another effort that we organized, an advocacy effort, the National Association of Landowners.
And Joe, has anyone put a monetary value on that land of ownership, that vast amount of ownership?
No, and we should.
Okay.
And we should. When I went to Chicago in 1983 to talk to up South Chicagoans from Mississippi and Alabama, we had a jam-packed room in a convening that we had. And in that room alone, we had about 150 Blacks who owned an heir interest in land in Mississippi and Alabama. At that time, and acreage was about at least $500 an acre. It is probably worth as much as $2,000 an acre in many of these places now. And so we have capital that we have not organized and assumed and packaged to leverage or opportunities for economic development that we have missed out on, and which ought to be a challenge for us to think about taking on.
And Joe, let's talk about that a little bit, because I want to get into the role the federal government played in the dispossession of land out of our community, and specifically USDA, FHMA. Could you speak a little bit about how they played into the legal side of the dispossession? Because we hear about, as Black Americans, we talk a lot about the violent side and the Klan and the things that were done violently to run us from land. But can you talk about a little bit the legal structures that dispossessed us of land?
No question about it. In fact, the biggest culprit in all of this has been the Farmers Home Administration. There is still an active and unresolved that only touched the tip of the iceberg in a lawsuit that was filed in 1999 that really tried to address the discrimination that had been addressed and put on African Americans through the Farmers Home Administration.
And that was Pickford. That was Pickford, correct?
Yeah, Pickford. Yeah, the Pickford.
Glickman.
Yes. Glickman.
Yes.
Glickman was the Secretary of Agriculture at the time. But the Farmers Home Administration is a good old white boy circle.
Yes.
Understand that at the local level, at the county level, Farmers Home Administration, they have committees that make lending decisions made up of majority whites in places where even there are a significant number of African-American farmers. So a Black applicant would make a loan request. Too often it was an amount that was either denied or a lesser amount than what the applicant wanted to receive. Yes. And it was often late in being delivered, which would have not allowed for an on-time planning to have a success in the crop that they were trying to get financing for in the first place. which usually ended up in, as I said before, $1 short, a day late, as leading to the loss of that land. We took on that, and in many cases, in one case in Tipton, Tennessee, the situation was so blatant and over the top that we organized a set of farmers who came from several places across the South, and we took over and closed down the Farmers Owned Administration operation in Tipton County, Tennessee. That was back in the late 70s, early 1980s. So you have that working against a federal agency. Then you have the land grant college system, and then you have the extension service.
Yes.
The extension service are supposed to be there for African Americans or any farmer to help with crop selection, agricultural techniques. Those resources and educational opportunities rarely reached African American farmers. Therefore, they were left out of opportunities for marketing assistance and just general education over the better utilization of their land. And so the Farmers Home Administration, the Extension Service, and the land grant college systems, the white universities at the time that had agricultural programs were not accessible to Black farmers. And it wasn't until the 1890 schools, which were the Black schools, were able and resourced to do so, that we have the advantage of having upscale and academic attention paid to agricultural endeavors. And Tuskegee Institute is one of the prime examples of that.
So can we just pivot a little bit, Baba Brooks, to what this looks like in a world where an HR 40 exists, where, you know, I think HR 40, which is a reparations study commission that was put forth by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee out of Texas. And when you have these cases and they're compiled, is there like a storage house where this data is? Because I feel like you are someone, you're almost like a national treasure, you know, and you could be brought in front of the HR 40 commission, you know, as an expert, and you could give expert testimony. But I have to imagine that the cases that you worked on are not singular cases. They're probably representative of more states than just a Tennessee. And I also would have to think that this information, like, you are one of the holders of this information. And so how in a world of reparations and a reparatory repair like act, how do we go forward with this information that we have? How do we start asking our government and our Congress not just to do the study, but say, hey, based on what we already know, this is what we want as a repair?
Well, one example that we have already is the Pickford-Glickman lawsuit.
Case.
And unfortunately, let me just say this. I have been a reparations advocate for most of my adult life. In fact, I was a citizen of the Republic of New Africa in the late 60s and early 70s, and reparations was a centerpiece of our agenda. Yes. But let me just say this. I am really disturbed at the lack of attention of our African American reparations effort, not looking at the rural South and the issue that we're talking about here today.
Yes.
The theft of Black land across the board, not only rural but urban as well, should be folded in and should be one of the centerpieces for a reparations demand. No question about it. The Federation of Southern Cooperatives / Land Assistance Fund, which is a merged effort that I was a part of during the time that I was in the South, they have plenty of data and files and stories and information that could lend a hand to boost the presence and visibility of a reparations demand being met on the part of rural efforts that we've been talking about, rural Black farm efforts that we've been talking about. There are plenty of archives. And by the way, the Federation of Southern Cooperatives merged with the Emergency Land Fund in 1986. and it is still active in many of the areas that we've been talking about here now. And they have the archives of many of the cases that would deserve to be put into the pot and discussion as it has to do with reparations. No question about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Joe. I wanted to talk a little bit because what I found fascinating about this topic as I was researching is that the majority of the dispossession of land occurred in the civil rights era. So we're talking about like 1950 to 1969, 70 or so, what we colloquially call the civil rights era. So we hit our height of land ownership under some of the worst racial terrorism, as we talked about earlier. But then our dispossession happened, our land loss majorly happened at a time when we thought we were seeing progress on a civil and social level.
So that's like 2 generations difference.
Yes.
You understand that, right?
Absolutely. So could you talk a little bit about that time frame, the civil rights era, and what happened there? Because I saw numbers like 6 million acres lost, 820 acres per day sort of thing.
Yeah. So I was active in the civil rights movement and related political nationalist, black nationalist efforts. Most of the agenda items were focused on access to have the same public resources and opportunities that white folks were getting. Very little attention was being paid to economic development related issues that are tied to land. Also, I can remember having to knock too hard on the doors of a lot of the civil rights efforts, including the Congress, the black women in Congress people during that time, trying to get them to pay attention to what was happening in the rural South and the land loss effort.
Yes.
It was an uphill battle.
Wow.
One of the things that I concluded, and I say this with some reservation, but I felt it at the time, was that in many ways we escaped the South, trying to get away from the South, and we were ashamed of the experience that we'd had in the South. And so to bring up the effort of rescuing African Americans who were holding on to their land was something that we avoided and did not want to be associated with. I hate to put it that way, but we were somewhat ashamed of where we had come from and what we had been through.
Yes.
And so I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
But economic development and sustainability and freedom and independence through land ownership was an afterthought.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, Joe, because we're determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past in this modern day reparations movement. And so what I hear you saying is that we got to center economic development. We have to center land or land equivalent, land restitution. That's got to be top of the list for us as reparationists. So thank you for that.
Bruce Beach is the topic that we're going to be talking about. And you're here in California. The county has making effort to return the land to the family. And I think that case is very sort of cut and dry. And so my question for you, and it's quite cut and dry because the family's still around, the paper trail is expansive, and there's no way to say like this didn't happen and it wasn't racism and it wasn't, these city councils that were openly racist with regards to that family. And my question to you is, in the South, where you had, if the KKK showed up, that was enough to run a family off, or the terrorism was just so tight and staunch that folks just left. There are a lot of people who just literally abandoned land. And has there been, you're at Policy Link, has there been any sort of valuation of opportunities lost? Have we quantified it in a way that we can speak to it, to bring it to the forefront of this current reparations conversation?
There are some black academics who are approachable and we could be in touch with. I would like to see, and there's an organized Black Economics Association too. I would like to see a conversation convened to look at all of the different data sources that there are that have been addressing this question over time. In fact, just recently, Mother Jones magazine featured a piece on Black land matters, Mother Jones, in their most recent issue, in May-June issue. And in this piece, some of the Black academics and others who have been accumulating data over time about this problem of Black land theft. I guess what I'm suggesting, we got to find a way to bring the Black thought leaders and academics together to see what it is and what it would take for us to accumulate and to package the kind of argument that needs to be made around this question of Black land loss and theft.
Yes. So, Baba Joe, last question. We're running out of time here, but if I'm going to ask you to pull out your crystal ball real quick, because I'm always thinking about the opportunity cost in all of this land theft and what was taken from our community. Could you talk just briefly, and I know it's a big topic, but where would Black Americans be today if we had not endured this mass dispossession of land?
We would own the Sears Tower in Chicago. That would have been our development.
Yeah, that's right.
We probably the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That would have been replicated many times over. We would not have, with the Civil Rights Act, necessarily left the Black community and the Black Wall Streets that had been developed in Atlanta. We would have stayed and grown them out and had more wealth accumulated, intergenerational wealth to be transferred.
Yes.
I mean, on and on. I mean,
we look much different than we do today.
Yeah, because when you think about what we accumulated against the odds that were up against us.
Yes.
Imagine, I mean, like you said, remove those barriers and we're smart as hell.
Yes.
And we are determined as hell.
Yes, that's
and
right.
Coming out of slavery and not wanting to have that repeated again, then having the opportunity to build and to grow and because as I said before, land to me is, for African Americans, was a cultural glue.
Yes.
And as we've been dispossessed, we've been unglued as a people, from my point of view. So land is that important and is a centerpiece for any kind of development and race building that we could imagine.
All right, sir.
Thank you for that, Baba Joe.
We're gonna end it and wrap it right there.
We gotta wrap up, but tell people how they can reach you, Baba Joe, real quick. If you have follow you website, any social media, let folks know how they can contact you and support you.
Two things. There's one, the most important website is the Federation of Southern Cooperatives /Land Assistance Fund. The Land Assistance Fund was once the Emergency Land Fund, and we merged with the Federation in 1986. You can reach me at joe@policylink.org.
Well, Baba Joe, thank you again for being here. You know I'm going to be reaching out to you. We're going to be talking as we move down this pathway towards
We are, because
redress.
AB 3121 is coming, and we want to make sure this topic is centered here with California's efforts.
That's right.
As a start.
Right.
Yeah.
But thank you, sir. Thank you for the time today. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Whew.
Right, he came with fire. He came with fire.
We have these guests that we can have for so much longer. And I think as we move forward with AB 3121, I think we're going to have him back. There's some people we're going to have to bring back to infuse into the actual commission.
That's right.
Which should last, hopefully, I think it's 18 months or 12 months. But we need to continually make that a point of focus. So with that, I think we're going to a quick break here.
Yeah, quick break. Again, like the video, share the video, subscribe, hit us on the Cash App, $NAASDLA, or in the Super Chat on YouTube, and we'll be back in about 60 seconds. Stick with us, fam.
Why?
He looks so stern.
Instead, it's just signs of the times.
What's happening, family? We're back for our next segment where we're going to zoom in on Bruce's Beach here in California, and we got two special guests. So Friday, please bring them in.
Yeah, so we are going to welcome Miss Kavon Ward. Kavon Ward is an award-winning spoken word artist and poetic activist and the founder of Justice for Bruce's Beach. She started her advocacy around Bruce's Beach on Juneteenth 2020. Like us, she's new, but she about that life. When she and other co-founders of a group in the South Bay put together a picnic at Bruce's Beach to shed light on the Black history in Manhattan Beach, specifically the land stolen from Black landowners and entrepreneurs Willa and Charles Bruce. And we also have a member of the Bruce family, Chief Dwayne Shepard. Dwayne Shepard was educated in Los Angeles, California, where he received training at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts West, the Inner City Cultural Center, where he was mentored by founder C. Bernard Jackson, the father of multiculturalism in the arts. In addition, Dwayne is the founder of the nonprofit arts organization, the Community Artists Guild, dedicated to helping other aspiring artists achieve their goals. So we want to welcome both Kavon and Chief Dwayne Shepard. Welcome to Politics in Black.
Welcome, Kavon. Welcome, Chief Shepard. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. This is an important topic and timely, so we're excited about this conversation. Chief Shepard, I'd like to start with you. You are a Bruce descendant. Your family felt the impact of, the actions of the city, back in the early 1900s. Can you just walk us through what happened, what Bruce's Beach was originally, and then how it came to be that we are now in this space trying to return that land, seek restitution?
Well, what happened is our matriarch and patriarch, Charles and Willa Bruce, bought a piece of land in Manhattan Beach for $1,200 back in 1912. And they paid $1,200 for land that was being sold between $10 and $50 per lot at that time. They took that lot and they turned it into a major entrepreneurial enterprise. It became the Bruce's Beach Resort, which was a getaway for African Americans in the Southern California region to come and enjoy the water along the beach, because there was no other place along the entire coast of California at that time where African Americans could safely enjoy the water. So they created this safe zone, so to speak, for the politicians, entertainers, and business owners, and even the Black gangsters of the South Los Angeles area and up and down the coast of Southern California. As they built their business into from a hot dog stand to a restaurant, dining hall, and bathhouse, they started to incur the wrath of the surrounding neighborhood, meaning the Ku Klux Klan. There are reports that the surrounding neighbors had a problem with their enterprise, but those neighbors were business. They were not actual homeowners. Those lands around around the Bruce Lodge at that time were vacant and owned by white land developers. So within about 1920, the Ku Klux Klan started harassing Willa and Charles Bruce with 24-hour phone campaigns of threats, slashing tires of patrons. The so-called benefactor of Manhattan Beach, George Peck, put up fake no trespassing signs in front of the facility so that African Americans could not go straight from the facility into the water. They had to walk a half mile either direction in order to get into the water. The Manhattan Beach Police Department put up 10-minute parking meters so that you could only park there for 10 minutes. So by the time you got out of your car and got to the lodge, you had a parking ticket. The Ku Klux Klan burned mattresses under the porch of the building. They burned crosses near the facility. They burned down one of the black residents' homes, and they started fights, which they pretty much lost most of the time
Mm-hmm.
with patrons during their course of them visiting the beach as well.
Yeah.
The Manhattan Beach Board of Trustees, which is now the Manhattan Beach um, uh, City Council, decided to condemn the property. First of all, pass ordinances making it against the law for them to have a bathhouse, a restaurant, or any type of business entity down there on the Strand, as it's called.
And
So
mind
they
you,
outlawed.
I don't even think they outlawed bathhouses in Venice Beach until like 19, I want to say like 1968 or
Oh, yeah.
somewhere around
Yeah.
there, like so much
Right.
later.
Right. Well. Manhattan Beach and Charles and Willard Bruce, they were the precursors to
Yes.
Venice Beach and Santa Monica and any other place that they were having these type of activities for the benefit of African Americans.
Yeah.
So yeah, they outlawed it, made it illegal for them to have this business there. Essentially, what's happened. Well, I'll go back to that, but I wanted to finish telling you the story.
Please.
So they outlawed it. They condemned the property. And so Charles and Willard Bruce fought the condemnation in court. And in 1927, they lost their bid to keep their property. And in 1929, through their appeal, through which they lost all of their fortune fighting this over the 5 years that they fought it, they got a judgment of $14,125 for property that was worth $70,000 at that time.
Wow.
And they were denied the $50,000. They wanted in punitive damages against Manhattan Beach Board of Trustees and the Manhattan Beach Police Department for colluding with the Ku Klux Klan to deny them their human rights. And when I speak about human rights, these people, our family, were victims of genocide
Yes.
in every
Yes.
sense of the word.
Yep.
Yes.
They were usurped from their homeland. That business there was also their home. They were dispossessed of their their possessions, and they were dispossessed of the ability to have a way of making a living.
Yes.
They were also dispossessed of their dignity as a group of African Americans. They were just singled out from that group, but they were still dispossessed of their ability to thrive as individuals, but only because of the color of their skin. And then less than 7 years later, they were both died from the post-PTSD,
Wow.
post-traumatic stress of being terrorized by the Ku Klux Klan and these cohorts in the city of Manhattan Beach. And if I sound angry about it, yeah, I'm angry about it. And it's been 96 years, and I still feel the pain that our family has suffered. And we intend to take these people before the bar of the World Court and have them condemned for violating the human rights of Charles and Willard Bruce.
Absolutely. Justifiable anger, Chief Shepherd. Kavan, I want to come to you quickly because you've been at the center of this fight for restitution for the Bruce family. What I just heard from Chief Shepherd was that this family was stripped generationally of any opportunity to build wealth. They were early in the game in leisure and hospitality in Manhattan Beach, which, as we know as residents of Southern California, is prime real estate. Could you talk a little bit, because we heard about the Ku Klux Klan and the violent nature of dispossession, but also that there was city action through eminent domain. Could you talk a little bit about the legal action that was taken, how the city condoned this theft?
Well, the city condoned it through, like you said, like eminent domain proceedings. They were allowed to steal the land from the Bruces, and they were allowed to do it legally.
Yes.
That just made it legal. So yeah, and then just to also let you know that my role in this has been to demand for the restoration of the land and restitution for the family.
Mm-hmm. Because they took it through eminent domain, but didn't do anything with it, right? They basically just took it so black folks couldn't own it.
There was a 20-year gap, and
30 years. It was
30-year
30
gap.
years.
Okay.
30 years. It did nothing. It sat there for 30 years and nothing was done to it. And I believe that the only reason why they decided to do something at that point was because there was going to be some pressure put on the city council, and because they were afraid that they would have to give the land back. Correct, Chief?
Yes, they thought that we would sue them, that the family had recourse to sue them because they did not do what they said they were going to do with the land, which was make it a public park They allowed it to sit there and dilapidate for 30 years.
Right, and I just want to also add that the land where the beach resort sat is the lifeguard training facility. It's not the park that we know as Bruce's Beach. It's the lifeguard training facility. So 30 years later, they still didn't build the park on the land.
Wow.
Wow.
So, Kavan.
96 years later.
Right.
Right. Kavan, question for you, because I know that part of what happened to you actually involved Facebook and like the group that essentially, you know, became the basis for the Juneteenth event at Bruce's Beach, kind of came out of Facebook's racist algorithm with things that you would try to post about what was going on in the community. Can you talk just a little bit about that and just how that happened?
Right. And I wouldn't blame it on the algorithm. I would blame it on the racist people here in Manhattan Beach. I was a part of several mom groups in the South Bay, LA area. And after George Floyd was murdered, myself and a couple of other people of color, women of color, started posting their anger about George Floyd and just how Black lives don't matter. And what happened was the people who were in control of those groups deleted my post and other women of color posts. And then when white people or people would post about it, they wouldn't delete those posts, but then they would delete my comments I posted underneath those posts. So, and then their argument was that we don't, this is not a political page. This is a peaceful page. And so what happened is a couple of other women of color and Asians and whites, and they saw what was going on. And so we decided to come together and start our own group. And it was called the Arms Around the South Bay, Anti-Racist Movements Around the South Bay. And that's where it all started. We learned about the story of Charles and Willa Bruce. First, I learned about it through a Nextdoor post. And then it came to me a second time from one of the mothers in that group. And so we decided to host a picnic at Bruce's Beach to shed light on what had happened to the Bruces and to just let folks in the community know about Black history, because as you know, there's less than 1% of Black people in Manhattan Beach. There's really no knowledge of Black history here. Or Black culture.
It's a homogenous culture down there, for lack of a
community.
Better term. Community. Sorry,
yeah.
Culture is the wrong word.
Community. So let me ask you this: how do you go from, because this has been happening to the Bruce family for decades, almost an entire century? How do you go from a legislative body at the city council level actively, essentially just trying to protect itself and protect what it had done, to now you have the County of Los Angeles working in cooperation to actually correct a very racist and tragic wrong?
Right.
Well, first of all, what you have to do is get public sentiment behind you. Mm-hmm. With public sentiment, then you can. Cause we leaped out into this through faith. We had no idea how this was going to turn out at all. You know, with first it was Kavan and her group that brought attention to the fact that Bruce's Beach was still in existence there and about the plaque. And then they brought me in as a spokesman for the family and asked for me to step up and say what the family felt about the situation for the past 95 years. So public sentiment had to be the first thing. Until you get the public behind you, the people behind you, you can't win at anything. So we have the people behind us, not only locally, but nationally and internationally now. So now that we have that, now we can go to the courts and we can pretty much expect a win. We can also go to the legislatures, the state and local legislatures. Well, not the local, but the state legislatures, the Assembly and the Senate, and pretty much have the support of them as well. Because if this turns out negatively, I think that they are pretty much going to be in jeopardy of their jobs, because most of the public supports us in our quest to get justice for our family.
Yes, the people power. And we had Senator Steve Bradford on a show about 2 shows ago, and I know he's been vocal about Bruce's Beach and about the justice that needs to occur here. Could you tell us a little bit, Kavan, about how you came to? I know it's people power, but you got Janice Hahn involved. You got Senator Bradford,
because he's actually sponsored the actual bill.
SB 796.
Yeah.
SB 796. So could you talk us a little bit through that process, because we're very policy focused here.
Well, I think it was more of a double team. Like me and Chief, we kind of like hit them hard from all around.
Amen to that.
And so I think it was a combination of things, right? It was when on Juneteenth last year, when I said And I looked at the footage yesterday when I said I want there to be policies created to deed the land back to the Bruces. I had no idea that it would happen this quickly. I kind of didn't even know it would happen at all, right?
Yeah.
But I think it was just me keeping my eye on the prize. Of course, Dwayne Shepherd coming in, doing his thing. You know, he's an activist at heart, and he's been in the movement since before I was born. So I think it was also the support of Patrice Cullors of Black Lives Matter. She helped me create the petition on Color of Change. It was definitely getting the community involved. And when I say community, I mean, you know, folks outside of Manhattan Beach, folks in the South Bay, because the bulk of the people in Manhattan Beach don't want the land to be given back to the family. Like, they're vehemently against it, which is why the city council didn't even want to give the Bruces a formal apology.
Yeah.
So I think it was just making noise, marching, protesting, making phone calls, strategic planning. My team is amazing. And then the family doing what they needed to do. So it was like yin and yang. We needed each other to make it happen.
That's beautiful.
You guys are giving me life right now. I just have to say that I know that this has been a challenge, in particular, Chief Shepherd, for your family, but we here at NAASD Los Angeles are reparationists. We are reparationists at the highest level, federal, state, local. We engage with our policymakers, and this is just really inspiring, because I think your going out on faith is just a testimony to our audience about the work that we do and how you have to just keep it moving and you have to keep it in faith. And so I just want, while we have you, I want to acknowledge you and thank you both for really being points of encouragement and points of light for us in the work that we do here.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you.
And
Thank you for your service.
yeah. And I'd like to pivot a little bit, because as I was researching Bruce's Beach, I came to the realization that, of course, Bruce's Beach isn't the only instance of eminent domain being weaponized to dispossess Black landowners in California. So, you know, we've got dozens, if not hundreds, of different instances just here in the state of California. One that's really prominent right now that's coming to light also is the Burgess family in Northern California. So I'm curious if either of you have engaged with other families around the state or other movements, other initiatives.
Yeah, are people seeking your advice?
Are people seeking you out to figure out, like, can we replicate this?
Yeah, I mean, I've had at least five families reach out to me and ask for help around the nation. And so moving forward, I'm working with a core group of people to put together a nonprofit organization where we will be hopefully doing the same thing that we did with the Bruces. So to be continued. You'll learn about that a little bit more later.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I've had a lot of people reach out to me from around the nation as well and locally for advice. I give them the best advice I can. It's just what I just told you. You leap out on faith, and you make sure that you get public sentiment, and then the media will pick it up. They cannot resist the controversy, no matter what they try to do. And once you get that public sentiment and get that media attention, then you can hope for possibly some redress in the courts like we're about to do.
Absolutely.
And I have a question, because I read one of the city council members said that it was one of the meanest things that they had done in life and they regretted it. And I remember just reading that and I thought, like, third graders on a play school yard are mean. This, like, in terms of emotions, like that is beyond being mean. Just in terms of what was done. And so my question is, you know, with any of the KKK actions, with is there any sort of criminal or redress that you can go to actually, like, make the people responsible for that decision so many years ago, or the police chief that was running the tickets, or...
Yes, there is redress. It's this little thing here called the International Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, that was done back in I forgot the year it was done offhand, but this is what the Bruce family intends to do. We intend to take the Manhattan Beach City Council by proxy for the Manhattan Beach Board of Trustees to the bar of the World Court in The Hague, and give them the distinction of being the first municipality in history to be charged with genocide against their black residents in their municipality. This is important because we need to let America and the world know that no longer will our people, especially African Americans, the African American nation, we're not a community in this country, we are a captive nation in a colonial country, will tolerate these type of actions against our family just because we want to progress and have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and maintain our human rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of human happiness.
Yeah.
So therefore, we're going to take the Manhattan Beach City Council before the bar of the World Court and have them condemned for violating the human rights of Charles and Willa Bruce.
Chief Shepherd, I want to stick right there with you because on the last segment, we talked a little bit about opportunity cost. And, you know, there's a value of land that we can seek redress for, right? We can seek a monetary value, but you can't replace the opportunity that was lost. And from what I'm hearing, early 1900s, Bruce and Willa started a hospitality business that was thriving, that was supporting a community, that was supporting other businesses and growth in the area. And it sounds to me as if if left untouched, they would have been in the realm of the Hiltons and the Marriotts and the Waldorfs of today. Can you talk a little bit about how you view the opportunity that was lost?
Well, the opportunity there was to pass down generational wealth to the descendants of Charles and Willa Bruce. Any parent in the world wants to give their children more than what they had, and give them the opportunity to do better than they did. These people were descendants of slaves, and they pulled themselves up by what Obama said, their bootstraps, and made a way for themselves and their family with little of nothing. So therefore, yes, it is important that our people understand that these people, these entrepreneurs, fought tooth and nail without arms against the Ku Klux Klan and a racist institution in the guise of the Manhattan Beach Police Department and the Manhattan Beach Board of Trustees, which is now the City Council, to make sure that they had something to pass along to their family. They could have certainly made it a hotel. They could have certainly made it even a large size apartment building, a dwelling, even if they couldn't have had any type of business there. And certainly the Manhattan, even though we may get the money, we may get the land back from the County of Los Angeles. That's only the one step in what we're asking for from Manhattan Beach. We want restitution for that loss of revenue.
I know,
And if
that's
they
right.
can't get, and if they don't want to come up with the restitution for the loss of revenue and the punitive damages with interest that our family was asking for the terrorism that they suffered at the hands of the Ku Klux Klan, the Board of Trustees, and the Manhattan Beach Police Department. We want that as well. And if they can't come up with that, and they figure, well, you know, the business would not have been there because they passed laws against it not being there, then give us what you think the value of the land would be, less the $14,125 in the settlement that you gave us in 1929, which we didn't get till 1932.
So,
And I just want to add, can I add something
yes,
there?
of course.
Go ahead,
It's just pretty ironic, right? And it's also very sad that this country always tells Black people, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You got to work hard for it. But I know there's all of these families who've had their land stolen from the Black farmers. They've had their land stolen from. They were entrepreneurs.
Yes.
They were pulling themselves up by their bootstraps.
Amen.
And this country, not only did they take the straps, they took the boots, they took the socks, and now they want to take the
Took the
feet.
land.
They're trying to take everything.
Yes.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? So it's like, which way do you have it? Which way do you want it?
That's right. That's right,
You
Kavon.
can't have it both ways.
At
You
this
can't
point, I'm getting to the point. I don't care how you want it. This is how we doing it.
Yeah,
but
that's
that's a
how we
whole
taking it- that's how we
other.
taking it back.
Right,
That's how we
that's a
taking it
whole
back.
other conversation.
Yeah, let's just like, come on.
Yeah. Let me
Can we-
ask this, because we're in California, and I feel so fortunate to be in California because we have AB 3121, the reparations bill. I want to know, have any of the commissioners reached out to you all to be give testimony in front of the commission? I know they're starting to form. I think they officially launch it's either June or July.
June.
1st that they launch, and I think that this story is very indicative of what happened to landowners here in the state of California.
Yes, I have been contacted by the Department of Justice to make testimony on reparations. I don't think they're going to really hear what I have to say, but I'm still going to make that testimony.
And say it with your chest, Chief Shepherd.
All the way out.
All the way out when you're up there.
It always has been.
Yes, sir.
There's no greater honor to a chief than to fight for his people and other than die for his people.
Yes, sir.
So I have no problem.
Yes, sir. Y'all about to make me jump up out this chair.
I know.
Good.
Even from our audience, the comments in our audience, they're very thankful. This is what they needed to hear. It's inspiring to them. Like our audience is making comments here in the feed, and so this is important work. The timing is perfect.
Absolutely. I'm
glad we have the platform. What you said you need the support of the people. We have a nice amount of people. We got a nice amount of people. What would you like for us to do? What can our audience do to help move this effort? Because we know that they just went through phase 1 with the legislative body. So how can we help you to raise your voice, to lift you up and support the work that you're doing?
Phase two is tomorrow. The bill goes to the Senate Appropriations Committee tomorrow morning. Get online, email those senators, let them know that you support Bruce's Beach and you support justice for Bruce's Beach. Let them know it, and let them know that if they don't support us, they may not be around to support us in the future.
Do you guys have a phone number? Usually I know.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Because I think that one of the misconceptions people have is that as soon as it goes out of the Appropriations Committee and then it gets out of the Senate, then that's it. There's a whole process, a couple of steps left, a lot of steps left, actually. So after it goes out of the two committees, the second committee tomorrow, it goes to a full floor for a full Senate vote.
Assembly.
That is when the full Senate vote, and then it goes to the Assembly where it goes through two more committees and then to the full floor for a vote. And then the governor signs it, and then it goes back to the County Board of Supervisors. So there's a bunch of steps. I would urge folks to follow us on Justice for Bruce's Beach on Instagram and Facebook to keep abreast of all the steps we need them to help us out with. We have this campaign with Color of Change where we're going to be asking people for help after this appropriations vote, because we feel like it'll go straight through the Appropriations Committee, but we need everyone to call in and to email in to get the full Senate, all 40 of them, to vote yes on passing SB 796.
Okay. Yeah, that's the call to action, fam. You heard it.
Yep. And tomorrow it sounds like we need to be paying attention. I think it's senate.gov. Do you by chance, Kavan, have the website where they can watch the appropriations hearing tomorrow?
Correct. It's senate.gov.
Senate.gov, folks, for those of you who I know like me will be watching, will be waiting. Yes,
and
sir.
that's the California Senate.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Well, thank you both for being here. This is such an important issue. I'm not a native Californian, but as soon as I heard about this, we had to get involved. And so I appreciate everything that you've been doing, Chief Shepherd, for all these years. Kavan, everything you've been doing on the ground. And we support you. We're going to be here. We're going to be fighting. We're going to be on the phone.
Question, is there a Juneteenth 2021?
Is there a Juneteenth 2021?
Yes, at Bruce's Beach.
It's in the works, honey. We're working on that.
Okay, well, you let us know the details, and we will make sure that we share it, because our next show is on the 13th, which is before the 19th. So yes, please make sure we have that information so we can share and show up with you.
Yeah, and they put a sign out there, or some they call sandwich boards out there, new restrictions at Bruce's Beach. So I'm sure there will be a new Juneteenth, but I'm sure there's going to be some controversy too, as the activities that are going to be there at Bruce's Beach as well.
Oh my
so yes,
gosh.
we will be there. I'm pretty sure the Bruce family will be there this year.
Yes.
We weren't able to attend last year because of our age, but I'm pretty sure we'll be attending this year.
It's a county park. We all pay our taxes anyway.
You have some cousins out there that
All right.
attended last year.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you again both for being here.
Important
We
work,
in the fight,
important
yeah.
information,
We gonna
and
fight
we
with you.
support your efforts 110%.
110%.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of
Power
your
to
day.
the right people.
Yes.
Power to the right people, the black people. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, y'all.
Okie doke.
Take care.
All right,
Oh.
folks. Land theft, the great land theft.
Yeah.
The Bruce's family, their folklore. I almost wanted to get a bit more into the folklore. We all, I think, have family folklore. Whether it was leaving white terrorism, you couldn't afford to pay the taxes because by the time you got to the city, you didn't have money left to send back home. There is a legacy, and I think at times in the reparations fight, people forget that this is our live legacy. We are living descendants of families with folklore, families with history, families with death as a result of heartbreak after doing the hard work and the right work. And I think that that has to be heightened as we move forth with our reparations efforts and looking at our humanity and making sure that people understand our humanity. With that being said, we're going to go into another break. We have some information for you on job training, so stay tuned.
Stick with us, fam. What's happening, family? Back from break, and unfortunately, we got some bad news here. We were expecting to have Assemblyman Jones-Sawyer for our reoccurring Meet the AB 3121 Task Force segment, but we're having trouble contacting the Assemblyman right now. So it looks like we might have come to the end.
This is a wrap, but I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited, one, because we really, this information today, I think is pivotal to the conversation of reparations.
Absolutely.
And it's also inspiring, and I'm hoping that you all feel as charged up as I do, but this is almost our 1 year anniversary.
Has it been a year already?
It has been. Look,
wow.
June is around the corner.
Wow.
So we've been at this. Politics in Black is a labor of love. That NAASD Los Angeles puts forward. We
Emphasis
thank you.
on the labor.
We thank you so much for having this platform and allowing us to have this platform, because what we want to do is really grow in our advocacy, and that means having other people grow in their advocacy. That is the main reason why we do this show. It allows us access to people that we think you need to hear from, but also to inspire you to take action at your local level, wherever that might be, whether you are in the state of California, Florida, New York, Wyoming, Wisconsin. It doesn't matter. The part of the work that we do is the same. It's just a matter of replicating it. And right. I think the Bruce Bruce's gave us a phenomenal story where we can really challenge the systems, because the systems are built in people who simply want to say no.
Yes.
So with that being said,
Yeah.
it's a wrap for us.
It's a wrap.
Sorry we missed you, Assembly Member Reggie Jones-Sawyer, because we really are engaged with this AB 31
bring 'em back.
commission,
Yeah.
and we will invite you back at another time.
Absolutely.
But folks, enjoy your Sunday.
Yeah, thank you folks for hanging with us today. This has been a good one. Before we go, I'm just going to give a quick shout out to Marcus Champion, who sat in the chair for, allowed me to recharge the batteries a little bit last month, did an excellent job. And if you haven't watched that show with Dr. Curry, that was a great show. Y'all did your thing. Come on. I'm gonna say
you got to get in the camera. There you go.
So,
in the camera.
So thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Friday. Thank you, Dr. Curry, for the last show. Before we leave, I'm just going to send a shout out to my man, John Brown. It was his birthday, May 9th, 1800. He was born. So to all the allies out there, if you're looking to ally with us in this movement, as
if you're
Black
a real
Americans,
one, because
if
he
you're a
paid
real
the
one,
ultimate price.
if you're a real one, look at John Brown and look
Yeah.
at his actions and look how he allied. That's what we need in this movement. So with that said,
peace,
fam.
all right.
Oh,
What?
wait, we got the Assemblyman? Oh, we're going to pivot.
He
Let's
came
go.
through in the clutch.
Let's go.
Let's go. This
We
is
back.
live.
Don't leave. Don't leave. This is what happens on live stream. So we are going to bring in the Assemblyman. So let me give you a quick rundown of who we're going to be talking to. So Reginald Byron Jones-Sawyer Sr. was elected to the state legislature in November 2012 and re-elected in 2014 and 2016. The district he represents lies entirely within LA County and includes the neighborhoods of South Los Angeles, Florence Firestone, Walnut Park, and a portion of Huntington Park. Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer earned his Bachelor of Science degree in Public Administration from the University of Southern California and has been an active member of the Alumni Association and past president of the Black Alumni Association. Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer was recently appointed by Speaker Anthony Rendon to the California Reparations Task Force to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans, with a special consideration for African Americans who are descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. So please welcome to the podcast. He's late, but he always on time. Assembly Member Reggie Jones-Sawyer.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm out with my family and we had a little car difficulty. So
No
I'm talking to you from a mall.
Okay, that's all right. That's all right.
Let me tell you. Thank you, sir.
Keep
That's what I'm gonna say.
As a father, as a married father, keep an eye on your wife and the kids, and don't give her the credit card. That's all.
Well, it's worse. I'm with my grandchild.
Oh,
there's no kryptonite made for that. Just so you know,
he gets two of everything in the mall.
So listen, we had a powerful show today. We had Joe Brooks of Policy Link. We had Chief Dwayne Shepard of the Bruce family, with Bruce Beach. We had Kavon Ward, and we're following up with you. And look, today is all about land and land theft. We know that you're on the Agricultural Committee for the state of California. And so all of that has to play into AB 3121 some kind of way. So talk to us a little bit about, your expectations, what you want to contribute, the things that are really important to you as far as this commission is concerned.
So what I tell people is my uncle was one of the Little Rock Nine, one of the 9 kids that integrated Central High School in 1957. And because of his sacrifice, I could go to any school I wanted to. So I ended up at USC and Harvard. I'm now working on my doctorate at USC.
Okay.
Because of him and those 9 brave kids and their sacrifice to make sure that I had access to any education I wanted. That's what they gave to me. I won't even talk about the thousand, probably millions of African Americans who gave their lives so that I could have civil rights. The biggest atrocity we ever had was they took away our affirmative action.
Yes.
And that was deliberate because we were moving too fast and too far. And so we were starting this whole process of rolling back 400 years of slavery, of segregation, of Jim Crow. We were beginning to cobble away at that. And because of those early pioneers, we have a Black president. because of early pioneers. We have an African American female black president, black vice president, and we have people that are in just about every field of human endeavor. Got a long way to go with the tech industry, but we're making strides. And what I expect from the reparation is to do something that's bulletproof. What I mean is, look, there's a discussion about the 40 acres and the mule. I don't want the mule. The mule depreciates as soon as it's off the lot, as soon as it's off the barn. I want the land. Yes. The land is where it's at. Education is where it's at. If you're talking about a long-term plan that is bulletproof, that they can't take away from us, then we need to develop policies that will ensure that our young people that are coming up that want to get a college education. I got a novel idea. Why don't we just make all Cal State LA in California free for any descendant of slaves? Wouldn't that be great? That we could guarantee that our people who are denied.
That's lineage based, so you get no argument from us.
That's right.
On that note, you get no arguments from us on that note.
And what my plan is to create an endowment. I went to USC and Harvard. They have endowments. That's bulletproof money. They live off the interest, and that way they can sustain scholarships a long period of time. Don't give me a bunch of money that I just spend overnight. We got to stop that. We got to have sustainable income. That also means we got to look at the property and to be able to give Black people access to be able to buy a home, even if it means we providing soft seconds and other monetary advantages. Another way to do it is create another pool of money, like we used to do with veterans. Veterans used to have a way that they could all buy a home. That went away. But we need to go ahead and show people why this is so important. That's right. Because the way you keep people down is to keep them uneducated and make sure they don't have access to land. If we just do those two things, so that my grandchild who's sitting in this mall right now is eating, that when he turns 18, that when he's 3 now, that when he turns 18, I can look back and say, this is what I did for you. Yeah. That if you want to go to college, you can. If you want to get a trade, you can. You have access to everything that the predominant race, those individuals that brought us here from Africa, have right now.
Absolutely. Now, thank you for that, Assembly Member. And you use some terminology that we use often here when you speak about descendants of slavery or descendants of slaves, right? So that's a specific lineage designation. So I wanted to go back to your point on affirmative action, because one of the things that we contend with out here in California is Prop 209, which constrains any programs being allocated on the basis of quote unquote race. And so when you start talking about descendants of slavery, and this ties into the AB 3121 task force and the language that's in that bill that is now law. But when you talk about descendants of slavery, we're talking about a lineage, as you heard Friday say. So I'd like to get your input on lineage specificity and how you see that playing with 209 or circumventing 209 potentially.
So one of the things that we need to make all races, Latino, API, know and remember is that same game was played on them. And then when we got affirmative action in, they were able to ascend and help their race move forward and get all the things that everybody enjoys. And so it's not just we as a race, when we fight for something, we ultimately fight for everyone that's been disadvantaged. That even includes the Native Americans whose lands were basically taken away from them with practically nothing. And so if we open the door like we did with affirmative action, we open the door like we did with equality from all aspects, which helped with the women's movement, with the LGBTQ community. If we open this door and then base it on whatever wrongs, and then work backwards on how we can create a sustainable program to be able to address those wrongs that have basically kept all of us down, like we are, like my descendants. We started all this. Yeah. And if we move forward with this reparations and do it in a substantive way, that doesn't break the bank, but it's sustainable, guess what? Others will follow behind us like they always have in the past.
Yeah.
So let me ask a question about the bank. Chief Shepherd talked about Bruce Beach and when his I think grandparents lost the beach. They were, first of all, eminent domain was weaponized against their family. Their family certainly is not the only family, because most of the highways and freeways here in the state of California were purposefully put through Black communities and broke up and dismembered Black community. But he said that family was given $14,000, not the fair market value at the time, which was $70,000. And we have plenty of communities. If you look at any opportunity zone map and you overlay a redlining map, it is the same areas. It's the areas that were historically Black neighborhoods and communities. And you see today, like a house over, let's say, in Leimert Park does not cost the same as a house over there in West LA, even though it's literally the same square footage, the same build, the same style. So my question becomes, as far as the bank and the state of California, because a lot of the real estate and realtor sort of manipulations that happened around race and covenants affected the wealth and the creation of wealth through land ownership. So my question is, how do you perceive the state being in a position to actually monetize those wealth gaps that are literally just based on persistent discrimination on maps?
Right. So I represent South LA, which is predominantly Latino, African American. Right now, there are families that don't look like your traditional South LA family.
Yes.
Quite frankly, there are white girls named Buffy walking their pools at 2:00 in the morning in South LA right now. South LA, if we do not come together as a people, will be white again.
Yes.
And the reason I say that is the color green will trump any other color, period. They're coming in, developers, realtors, others, predominantly white. They show a suitcase full of cash, and we just take it. We take that 300 grand, because we've never seen that much money before. We sell grandma's home, we sell our family home, and then they move in, kind of trip out the house, and they go from like a $300,000 investment plus another 100,000, and within a very short period of time, they got an 800,000 to $1 million home, just by settling in that neighborhood. My challenge is to educate Black and Latino people to say, look, the reason we have the wealth gap is because of home ownership, owning land. That's our wealth, that's our gap. And then we need to teach our young people and our old people. If your grandma has a house that's dilapidated, she's been in there for 50 years, but she paid the mortgage, we need to bring young responsible people in that want to stay in the community, African American and even Latino, to stay in South LA. The house is paid for. You do $100,000, rehab loan, carry that house out any way you want. Make sure grandma's taken care of. You build maybe a granny flat in the back, or you just make sure she has all the accommodations she needs. She passes away, you raise your family, and in 10 years or less, because that's the way the housing market is going right now in South LA, you will be worth $1 million. That grandchild, that great nephew, that great niece will be worth more. We don't talk about real estate assets and in a monetary way at the table. Do we talk about sports? Definitely. We talk about who's dunking the most, who throws the most passes. If so-and-so is going to get a scholarship in some athletics to college, but we do not talk economics.
That does a correction for current owners, but it certainly doesn't necessarily do a correction for people who have left, like Black families that have left California ultimately in droves because they couldn't afford to be here. I mean, they were in undervalued communities. The communities are undervalued and coming up. but it still doesn't sort of address like the growth, let's say from 1940 to 1980 for the family that's left the state. And I think that those are the kind of complicated things that the commission is going to have to look at, because the redress in a way has to go to those families also, if that makes sense. I hope it makes sense.
Well, we're going to have to, that's part of the research we're going to have to do, because California may be a place that Black people will want to move to because they can get an education and they can get a home.
Yeah.
And so we need to make sure that it is for Californians, even the ones that have left, but we got to make sure it's for Californians to not only stay here, but to profit here and to be here successfully. And so that's part of what the reparations group needs to figure out, because it's going to be, if we do this right, this discussion about low numbers of African Americans in California will not be a discussion anymore. They'll be coming in. We just got to make sure it doesn't get taken advantage of, or is not used in the way that we want it to be used. That people stay here, they live here, they have children here, they have families here, and that just becomes not a place you just come in, make some money, and leave. Then that's what I meant by educating people on financial wealth as part of even the task force on the reparations. We just got to do better at it.
Fair.
Assembly member, we only got a couple minutes here, but I want to ask you, because it is relevant to your work on the AB 3121 task force. Have you read From Here to Equality by William Darity and Kirsten Mullen?
No, but I will.
Okay, so
we're going to get you a copy.
We are going to get you a copy of that book,
you.
Because part of this reparations work is we all have to understand our true condition. We have to understand where we are, by the data, right? And I think that's an educational path that we've all been on. We learn every day. We're picking up, and we have to shape our views and our advocacy around concrete data to get concrete outcomes. So From Here to Equality is a great kind of primer on Black America and what a true reparations plan could look like. Because I think sitting on that task force, you have a unique opportunity to not only affect substantive and durable change here in the state of California, but to also inform the federal government on what reparations could look like potentially. So I want to get you a copy of that book. So
and we need to get some information so folks can stay connected with you as you're on this AB 3121 journey. Do you have social media, or I know you have the website?
Yes, website, social media, I have campaign website. I got more sites than I even know how to get into. So definitely get that. But at the end of the day, Senator Bradford and I want California to be the standard, the benchmark, that when people talk in other states and maybe even other countries about reparations, they come look at California as the place to start, that this is the right way to do it.
Well, we are definitely going to be in touch more, Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer.
And we're glad you made it.
And we're glad you made it today and took some time out of shopping with your grandson today at the mall. Thank you very much for doing that.
Yes, sir.
But we are in this fight. We are 100% committed to this fight. And so you will be hearing from us. You will be seeing us. And we look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you, because we're going to need your support as we push these policies forward, especially the financial ones.
Absolutely.
We're going to need you to rally the troops to make sure we let them know how important it is to the African American community.
Yeah, not only rally, but we got some good ideas for you too. So let's talk.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the time.
All right, this has been another episode of Politics in Black. Until next month, folks, we are going to celebrate next month our 1-year anniversary. Be here. Chad Boogie Brown will be in the house.
I'll be here.
And so will I. Until next time, fam.
Peace, fam.